What's up, everybody? We're going to be talking about respecting differences and embracing those differences when it comes to conflict. Okay, so what I mean by that is we go through a situation, right? And we have an issue with that situation.
Yep.
I go in my corner, I take a time out to process my thoughts. You do the same. But when we come back to talk about that conflict, we have empathy for one another, we're vulnerable with one another. I see the conflict one way. I have a healthy perspective,
Yep.
right? I'm not triggered or anything.
Okay.
But I see the conflict one way, and then you see the conflict in another way.
Gotcha.
Is that a bad thing? Like, does it mean that we're not unified?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question because a lot of times we're wanting the other person to be the same as us.
Correct.
And we have to learn to accept and embrace each other's different. In fact, I think that you create some of the best, ideas, some of the best compromises, some of the best partnerships when you have the strength of one another's different rather than everyone just being and thinking the same.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it shouldn't be a competition as to like who's more right, who's more wrong, or whose perspective is more superior than the others. And so a healthy outlook on it is I have my way of viewing the circumstance, and it may be a part of the solution. And the other person may have a different way of connecting to the issue that may not even be solution forward, but it is a healthy way of observing the circumstance from like their perspective. Yeah. And I think a lot of times the issue is that when you're heated, you're so into like your heels are dug in, your fists are clenched. So it's harder to receive what the other person is even trying to communicate. Because like sometimes you can be at a point of conflict with a person, in tension with a person, and y'all ain't even technically talking about the same thing. But there's a lot of emotion because you just don't feel heard or you just don't feel seen. So I think that like one of the healthiest things that you can do is to listen to understand and not just respond. Let a person get out their full thought and ask clarifying questions without it feeling like you're interrogating them. But it is important for you to ask clarifying questions if you're still confused. I think that that's something that can happen. And then the person explaining has to be patient with that process. Like it's one thing for a person to ask clarifying questions. It's another thing for a person to kind of question you. So I think that it's really good to have questions on hand that you usually go to begin to search for the type of connection and clarity that you need when you disagree with their outlook on a situation.
I think society has put such a high pressure on sameness in marriage, and we forget that spiritually, yes, we are one, but we have our individual uniqueness.
Right.
And we don't have to lose that for the sake of the marriage. Now, don't get me wrong. I totally think that there are certain things that you need to have commonality or an agreement on when it comes to vision and values and things like that. But when it comes to some conflicts, like maybe one of the things that you want to ask yourself is like, us not seeing eye to eye on this particular conflict. Is it going to ruin the marriage? Is it going to knock us off our goals?
Right.
Is it going to belittle one another? Like, I think there are just a couple of questions you need to ask yourself. Like, do I really need to agree on this particular topic, or can I just have my own opinion?
I mean, I think it's the same thing. I mean, I know this is kind of boiling it down to something that's super simple, but like, some people can eat bananas, some people can't. Some people,
That's a great
some
way
people
to-
really like onions and some people hate them. It
Don't
doesn't
make
mean
me eat your onions.
The problem is when you try to force
Yeah.
the other person into your own ideology or way of, viewing the world. I think that there are certain, especially if you're dating right now, you have the option to say, hey,
that's true.
There's some stuff that you believe or you think or perspectives that you have that I don't gel with, and this isn't gonna work.
And that may be
because
a value
those are more
thing.
values and principles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As opposed to like you disagree with the chore schedule. You know what I mean? Or you disagree with how often you should visit in-laws. You disagree with how to discipline the kids. Like, these are real conflicts that cause a ripple within a relationship, and one person is going to have a different perspective on child rearing. It doesn't mean you need to get a divorce, but it does mean you need to hear out the other person's heart behind the choice that they're making when it comes to that parenting style or parenting decision. And then you still have to have the free space to be able to communicate, and then y'all try to find that happy compromise.
Well, that's what I was about to say. So if there are areas in your marriage where you all differ, you can always negotiate.
Absolutely.
You can always come to that compromise of saying, okay, this is you, this is me. How can we come together in the middle, not compromising one another's like personal opinions, but how do we come together in the marriage to make this work? Yeah,
I totally agree. Again, when you have the wisdom of a man, the wisdom of a woman, when you have the gentleness of a man or a woman, and then you have the strength that comes in different ways, and y'all are able to share your perspective, it then leads to you all building something amazing. But I think that if you're in competition with your spouse, then jealousy can enter in. Or if you have an inferiority complex, then you're intimidated by your spouse's intelligence.
Say that, brother.
That's going to create some problems.
Yeah.
So you have to be secure in the reality that your partner comes with gifts. They come with talent. They come with ingenuity and intelligence. And you should be able to value it and respect it. And just because they may have a difference of opinion, or they may be right, and your perspective may be missing the mark, you know what I mean, in certain circumstances, are just not working, it's okay. You're not losing. I mean, by submitting to shared wisdom, you're saving yourself time.
Yeah.
You're gaining perspective. You're building something together. And to me, why not? I just had this thought. Adam is in the garden in Genesis, and God brings Eve to Adam, right? So God delivers this strong woman to a strong man, and they both made in the image of God, which means they both have equal value. And he the man looks at her and he was like, whoa, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. That means we're one. Obviously, we're different in the nature and style and what gifts they brought to the table, and even how they reflected the image of God. And he received Eve. And I think that there is a point where you realize that is your helper, not in a subservient way, but in a partnership of executing the agenda, the vision that God has for your lives. This is my stand next to me. Let's build something great. It ain't necessarily the beneath me, above me, behind me. It's the beside me. The beauty of the rib situation is your rib is right there. It's on the side. And so the concept is from the jump that there's this unity that happens when I'm next to your ear, you're next to my ear. Let's talk and work together and find that sense of unity.
Your differences are welcomed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And
they're valued. And
that's even when you disagree on a conflict. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
We have a lot of resources that can help you in your relationship. We do marriage coaching. We do intensives. We also have some free downloadable resources that'll help you better your communication with your significant other. So make sure that you click the links in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. God bless.